So, hello. Here I will explain how did I do the Something Social 2025 videos and what troubles I had to overcome and what is still left to improve. Maybe it will be useful to someone. So, I received an official art of my OC from Arcane Misc and I loved it so much I instantly wanted to make something out of it. If you watched some of my previous music videos on my channel, you might know that I love to make the puppet animation in After Effects. I wanted to try 3D modeling. Now, in the interview for Something Social, I actually said that I had to learn everything from scratch. In reality, up to that moment, I eventually had a little bit of experience with 3D modeling in 3ds Max. But honestly speaking, the basic geometry is nothing in comparison to what I have planned to make, so technically I really had to learn everything from scratch. How to make a proper model, how to rig it, how to animate it, and how to render it properly. Before all that was possible, I requested from Arcane Misc a pack of exported layers of the art that she did for me, and I received 3 layers in total. First one is background layer, second is my character, and the third is the magic overlay of it. So first of all, what I really had to do is to separate everything in my OC and background into little parts that I could use as textures. And I spent quite a lot of time on it. It is required because you can see there are some things that remain hidden under other objects. So what I had to do in order to animate it properly is to make these textures properly first. You can definitely see, for example, this one didn't go so well, but animation goes the way it becomes not too critical. So some stuff like this one, for example, was something pretty complicated to me. But I understood that if I don't do it, some of the textures of the steel parts, which will be modeled above later, without redraw will definitely ruin the realistic feeling of the cape. This is the texture of head, for example. Not perfect, but it shouldn't be. On 3D model behind the mask and hair, it looks more or less okay. The only thing that I asked Arcane to redraw was the eyeball, because I really wanted to make it properly animated, so I needed a bit larger, better texture, but it was so tiny at the moment that I was afraid I can ruin something in an attempt to fix it myself. I also had to expand the existing background a little bit, and I had to fade the lines on this background a little bit too. And here we are, starting from the background. So the first idea behind the background was, if it looks like it is made out of circles, then it should be some kind of a tunnel. But I felt that it's going to be way too simple. So what I did is I made a separate round structure for each and every layer of this, for each and every set of lights, so I can animate this in more interesting ways. Now, how I decided to animate this. The 3 circles that this construction is made of have to rotate and move a little bit to the front and to the back together with the camera. So after I did the simplest part, I had to figure out how to make the most complex part, how to model my OC, how to texturize it, and how to render it properly. So If you know even just a little bit about basic modeling and using splines, then you can do it little by little. I just placed a plane behind this model. I made it the same size as the size of the picture in pixels, threw a picture material on it, and then just took the spline line and started to draw the parts of the body over that picture one by one. Now, when you make spline, you have to add volume to it, so it will turn into a model. Here's what I did. Make a spline right now, just a random one. Here we go. It consists of 4 vertices. And the thing is, when you apply the surface modifier to the spline, it kind of applies to the model, but it welds certain vertices and fills the spline parts with no more than 4 vertices in them. We can add another line between some vertices to connect them, so we have parts up to 4 vertices, which are totally fine for surface modifier. That's it. I tried to just make some cylinders and modify them just a little bit for arms, with the protection pads, neck and head. But most of the models are done using splines. When you select a certain object and select the movement, rotation or scale in this thing, there are 3 fields below the timeline that eventually allow you to precisely control all the editing parameters you want to apply to object. If we select drop down combo box right here, we can change the mode of these parameters application. I frequently use the view, parent and the local ones. Parent and the local, they both were useful for editing vertices and still maintaining the symmetrical good looking shape, and also for rotating limbs correctly. View makes it so the scene axes are applied. It was helpful when we have to move object without modifying its position relatively to the picture it is based on. Shell modifier applied to ears. Let's take a look at it right now. The skew that eventually shifts the model in a certain angle. Some twists, some bend, just to make a model to look a little bit more realistic. It changed relatively to picture a little bit, but eventually it all still looked good, so I kept it. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is the soft selection stuff. The soft selection allows you to select not some of the vertices strictly, but a little bit more vertices that will have smaller weight. What does it mean exactly? We have a soft selection activated right here, and we'll move this a little bit. Alright, the vertices that were soft selected are also moving with the vertices that were strictly selected. The soft selection was really helpful when creating the volume of the certain things. You can see the hair. Eventually I just did the splines, converted them into polys, and then duplicated them, connected them by their edges, and the rest of the stuff was up to scaling vertices using soft selection and parent pivot, so it all looks like natural hair. The next thing to do was texturizing. Eventually, each of the models I created I had to cover with UVW map. Here it is. After mapping one background picture, I had to apply same position but different maps to all of the models. And also by adding those textures to the model, I found out how to fix those textures and those models to not contain any blank spots or weird stuff that can come out from the textures application. The animation could reveal some imperfections in the overall scene, which I did not want to happen. So I modeled everything I applied the maps, and the next step for me was the rigging process. It's pretty difficult to rig everything properly. Now take a look at this. I could not animate the winds properly. They're complex, and if I wanted to spread them wide, then they should have been remodeled differently first, or they would look bad. So I had to make their movements as little as possible. The same goes for all of the clothes. By the way, there are two modifiers. The first modifier is skin. This modifier, being applied to any object with selecting of proper bones, will eventually cause this object to deform accordingly to those bones' movement. And the second modifier is cloth, which helps to simulate the clothes' movement. If you apply the skin, the object is being deformed using the skin. If you apply the clothes, you cannot just take this object and make that part of this object moving by a skin modifier and another part of this object moving like clothes. It doesn't work like that. Well, at least I didn't figure out the way how to do it. I failed to simulate the clothes properly, and after lots of attempts for about 2 weeks, I'd used the skin instead. All of the clothes you see right here are animated using lots of bones, the skin modifier, and a simple program called AutoWeight. Now, this thing helped me a lot because in the 3ds Max 2012 you cannot just attach bones to the object and say, yeah, it's alright, it's done. Because again, there is a soft selection and it is not applied by default in the skin modifier. There is no easy way to apply it in the skin modifier. The AutoWeight eventually solved this problem for me. I also left my tail planner. At the moment I forgot about it and left it as is. Also, I didn't really want to animate everything on my head with bones. So I decided to make the hair wave a bit by rotating it. I needed head to rotate a little bit too, and figured that to animate an object with few objects logically connected to it, you should first animate these small objects and then group them and animate this group separately. Also, you cannot just ungroup this object after that, because they will lose their animation. The simplest things that I could ever animate were the arms, because they did not even have to be attached to the bones so I can animate them. I just changed their pivot points and made the rotation and moved them around those points a little bit. Transform animation saves a ton of time if it can be applied and still look good. The legs animation was also not the most complex one. Skin modifier went very good with that. I animated everything. I added some cameras, I animated them too. I aimed for this to be not only the whole model that just will move a little bit around here and there. I wanted this to have some more meaning. As you know by now, the Something Social 2025 has a cyberpunk theme, which made me think I want to go further than before. Which eventually made me think about the intro of the Ghost in the Shell. That's why I decided to make this model a little bit more interesting and add the scenes of assembling it. I just copied lots of these models and, well, here it is. Different scenes were recorded using these cameras. Object copy has different mapping using the plastic texture, and this is how the parts are moving. That's pretty much it, nothing special. And this scene was about assembling the whole body. All of the parts have their own place in the resultant sequence. So models get up from kind of water, which colored everything that body was made of, and then eye opens. And during all of this journey, probably the worst thing that I spent my time on was rendering. Now, I had to get this thing in consistent colors, and the only option that is available for me out of the box is to use the Quicksilver renderer. Change the rendering level, and basically that's all for me. And the problem with this renderer is it drops frames. It renders the black screen. So in my case, I just fixed that on the post-production in the DaVinci Resolve. Re-rendering the large scenes in high resolution takes a lot of time, which I didn't have already. But I could eventually fill the lost frame or two with just cutting the previous frame and making it duplicate. This model moves very slowly, and you just will not notice 1 or 2 frames will be lost. Now I had to apply magic and lighting somehow, and this application seemed to be very simple. I decided the easiest way to do it is to replace all these materials with one material of magic overlay and just then render it again. But the problem is when I tried to render that stuff, every time it crashed. I stopped render, it crashed. I let it render until the end, it crashed again, and so on. I don't know why the 3ds Max crashed from the rendering of literally few objects with one map. The rest was up to post-production in the DaVinci Resolve.